I'm Gary Sinise. I've had the great privilege of meeting and working with many of our country's heroes, our veterans, and heard their stories. But for the 58,272 names on the Vietnam Wall, their stories will never be shared. Help us change that. The Education Center at the Wall will put faces to the names, displaying photos, letters, and mementos of those who served, so their stories will never be forgotten. Visit buildthecenter.org and help us build it.
I'm Ed Zackery, Director of the Medina County Veterans Service Office. Welcome to Salute to Service, a show about Medina County and our veterans. What we hope to capture in this program are some of the many achievements, heroic deeds, and sacrifices of our past and present warriors from here in Medina County. We also hope to highlight the many accomplishments that they have continued to make as veterans right here in our community. Again, welcome to Salute to Service. Today we're on location at Elmcroft Assisted Living in Medina, and I'm sitting here with Dr. Arnold Herpy, correct?
Yes, that's
How
correct.
you doing, Doctor?
Fine, thank you.
Now, you served in the United States Army
Yes,
during the Korean War?
exactly.
What did you do in the Army?
I trained basic trainees for infantry basic and then medical basic.
For medical basic.
And so when we finished with the 16 weeks of training, then they would be shipped right out as a medic to Korea.
Now, where did you go to basic training at?
Right there here in Camp Pickett, Virginia.
Camp Pickett, Virginia.
Yes.
Any memorable experiences about basic training?
All good ones.
All good ones? Pretty
Yes.
tough, though, I imagine, huh?
Yes, it was. It was because it was the time of the Korean War now, and we had a hard time with our basic training because we had to be quite strict about it. We had 8 weeks in infantry basic that had to be finished so we could get 8 weeks of medical training. This way, the people that were in the medical, they would know how to treat emergency care infantry soldiers that would be wounded, and we had to teach them how to take care of emergency care for them, treating with drugs and things of that nature.
Now, what kind of soldiers went into the medic corps? Did people volunteer for it, or were they selected? Or
Yes, well, what happened, they were conscientious objectors that were diverted to our services because we wanted them to be medical aid men, and they actually were not available to shoot. They didn't want to shoot rifles. Conscientious objectors, and they made very good medical aid men.
so back then, the medics didn't carry weapons back then like they do today.
Oh yes, they were. You carried what we called a 30. It was a 30-06 carbine.
Oh, okay.
We called it a pea shooter.
Oh, okay.
But in relation to our regular 30-06 rifle, that was really a good weapon.
Now, how did you get into the Army? I mean, did you just enlist because of the Korean War?
Well, I was going to be drafted.
Okay.
But then when I found out if I was going to be drafted, because I was a member of ROTC from Ohio State University, then I could become a second lieutenant if I wanted to go. So that way I volunteered, and then I was able to volunteer for 2 years at that time. So that's what I did. I volunteered for 2 years. Instead of being drafted.
Right. You were lucky enough you stayed at Camp Pickett the whole time then.
Yes, and I had a regular Army as a medical occupational special MOS number, medical occupational specialty number.
Did you enjoy your time in the Army?
Oh yes, I had a good time.
How do you think it helped you get through life or change you as a man through?
Well, it started me on my doctor's role, and to be to have a chance to get to college was my #1 role, and we didn't have a scholarship for track.
Okay.
What they did is they allowed.
So you ran track when you were in the ROTC program
Yes,
back at
yes.
Ohio State.
I was a pole vaulter
Wow.
there, Yes, I won the gold medal there.
Very cool.
So, but they don't give scholarships. If you're a Buckeye, you get one scholarship for football, and you get one scholarship for basketball only. So, naturally, I knew that I was dead when it came to a scholarship
for pole
in
vaulting.
track. Yes.
So when you came out of the Army and you went back to Ohio State
Yes.
to become a doctor.
Immediately, I started into pharmacy school.
Now, were you able? Did they have the GI Bill back then that helped pay for college?
Oh yes, and that was a nice part of it. We got 2 days of education while we were in the Army during the Korean War for 1 day of service.
Wow.
So my 2 years service actually gave me 4 years of college education that way.
So when you came back, it was pretty much paid for
Yes,
4 years.
yes, it was partially.
Wow.
partially.
So the GI Bill's been going on for a long time. That's a great
Yes,
benefit.
that was a great benefit for anyone that didn't have money to go to college.
Wow.
And then with the university at Ohio State, we had one good thing about our Ohio State University. It was a state institution, and if you had a grade of 2.7 or better, you would be accepted to the university. So that was one good reason for being a...
Came back from the Army, you graduated as a dentist?
Yes, I did.
And you went back out and started your own practice?
Yeah, 8 years. And then also hospital practice too.
So do you think your military experience helped you through some of that?
Oh, it
later
sure
in life?
did. Yes, it did, because the emergency care is so important right in normal hospital, which I was assigned to the Lake East and Lake West for both places. I served 14 years on the east side and 12 years on the
west,
on the second side. I told them I only wanted to do 2 years the second time around. They said, "Oh, just 2 years. We'll settle for that anyway." I ended up doing 12 years up there.
Did you get any, when you were in the service, did you get any breaks, any leave time to come home or anything? Or what did you do on your leave time?
Normal leave time, yes. Well, I played golf over at Fort Lee, Virginia.
Wow, that's a nice place, isn't it?
Yes, and I played on the golf team there at Camp Pickett. So it was really nice. I really enjoyed it.
Anything special you want to add about your military service? Any special memories or anything that stands out?
No, except I got a chance to see the state of Virginia, which was beautiful, absolutely beautiful, over at Camp Pickett.
All right.
And I knew the PIO officer, and we played golf together because we were part of the team.
Speaking of the PIO officer, was that kind of like a lifelong friendship, or?
Yes, it was. And in fact, we went down to Fort Knox, Kentucky to play, hopefully go to Pebble Beach, California, but they only accepted five members from the whole Second Army area.
Did you stay in contact with him for years?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did for many years after that. In fact, he came over when I was down at Ohio State while I was there, and I played on the golf team there at Ohio State, and he would come by periodically to visit. So it was really a
lot of camaraderie in the military.
Yes, it was. It was a great relationship. I learned a lot from him.
Great.
And I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, just being a part of the Army service.
I want to thank Dr. Herpy for coming today. I appreciate you coming by and sharing some thoughts about your military service with us.
It was my pleasure. I really enjoyed it. You're welcome.
Yeah, but did you see how much he had to drink last night? I can't believe that guy made it home. Nobody drives drunk anymore. Hold on, I got another call coming in.
While drunk driving rates have dropped greatly, negligent driving and speeding fatalities have skyrocketed. Someone dies every 13 minutes from negligent driving, so keep your hands on the wheel, your eyes on the road, and your phone put away.
Coming home can be hard if you're a veteran of Iraq or Afghanistan. You may feel like you're all alone, but you're not alone. At iava.org, your fellow vets are all around you. Join our free online community, get the resources you need, and connect to other vets who know where you're coming from. iava.org. We've got your back.
I have with me today Mr. Alan Goebel. Mr. Goebel, how you doing?
Good.
Can I call you Al?
Oh yeah,
All
come
right.
yeah.
Al, you're a World War II veteran, United States Army Air Corps, correct?
Right.
And what made you join the Air Corps?
Drafted.
You were drafted?
Yeah.
War had started, and did you
Yeah.
go right out of high school, or were you already out of high school?
I was out of high school.
You were out of high school?
Yeah. Well, I only went to 2 years of high school,
And what did you do in the Army Air Corps?
and then I took care of. I went to Lansing, Michigan, and they were making the 20 millimeters, 50 calibers, and the 37s, and you know what they used in the Air Force, in the airplanes, and they had a school there.
Right.
And so that's what we spent. I think 3 weeks there learning them.
So you worked on the armaments. You basically
Yeah.
fixed the guns and made
Fixed
sure
the
the
guns,
guns were
yeah.
working and all that.
Yeah.
When you got done with school, where did they ship you to?
Well, and then after we got done with school, we headed out to California and ended up in Fresno. And
Well,
then-
that had to be some pretty good duty.
yeah, and then Fresno was more military training.
Mm-hmm.
And then we ended up in Mojave Desert, Edwards
Edwards Air Force
Force
Base.
yeah.
And what did you wind up doing there?
There, I took care of the guns, because we formed our squadron and trained the pilots for overseas.
So they had a whole squadron there, and you would train them, and then they'd ship the squadron out somewhere.
Yeah,
And where was your squadron going?
well, we stayed,
Right.
because that's all we did is train.
Well, I mean, the squadron you were shipping, where did they go to?
Oh, South Africa.
South Africa?
Most of them all went to South Africa.
Anything you remember particular about that unit, or?
Well, not particular. There was, because this is commanding officer, note, he was so good to us. He gave us, we all got our rank,
Right.
as soon as he could. And then the guys worked. And military courtesy wasn't number one. That was the lowest thing, because he wanted those planes ready.
Right.
Because what they did was all of a sudden call, and we'd have to have 16 planes or 6 planes.
That
and
takes
they-
planes out.
out and so forth, training. And we had such a good training, and the fellows, good bunch of guys. They would go there out at night. We would, if we had something to do, we'd do it.
Mm-hmm.
After we ate,
Right.
we didn't have to, but they did, they did that. And then from there, we moved down to Medina, California, just outside of Long Beach. It was a small airfield, and that's all we was. I mean, small.
Where were those planes going to?
all of our 38s went right down there with us.
Oh, and then they shipped out to South Africa from there?
What, the pilots?
Oh, okay,
The
right.
pilots, the planes we kept.
So it was
And
just a training plane,
because
okay.
they all
right.
got new stuff when they went overseas. And we had such a good training record because we didn't have no hangars, just canvas guys, you know, they put up. And they would be out there with flashlights, working on planes, overhauling the engine.
Keeping them up, yeah.
Yeah, and so we got ready to go overseas, and we greased up all of our planes, and then they canceled it. And then about three months later, same thing. But because of our good record of this, you know, we was turning out such good pilots, you know. That's why.
They kept you there training them.
Training, yeah, that's why we didn't get overseas, because the guys wanted. So then from there, they broke up the squadron, and I shipped over to Puerto Rico. And there in Puerto Rico, I did the same thing, but we had all kinds of planes.
Right.
Because they were coming back from either going over or coming back from Europe. And we even had, just before I got there, Tommy Harmon, remember him, the football player?
No.
He was with the Rams. And and then the B-29s came in. And so, and then what happened, because I was in the, working on guns, they had a lot of civilians working on the airplanes. So there was an opening, and because I went to school, when I got drafted at the airport, I wanted to become a mechanic. So I had some of that experience. So I made staff sergeant, and I got into the mechanic. So then I was working on the airplanes, which made me happy.
You like that, yeah?
Oh,
you liked
yeah.
airplanes, yeah?
Yeah, but I'll tell you one experience. They had me checking all the controls. The cables had to be certain temperature, tense, you know, so everything worked evenly. Right. So they took this old, we called them Goonie birds, which is the old C-47s. Mm-hmm. So they overhauled it, and they took it up, and the pilot came back moaning, it was vibrating. And so they went, and he said it was the controls wasn't right. And I says, no, I know it. I says, I rechecked those. Because I was so proud that, they let me do all that. Right. So they checked them all. They all checked out good. And here, the fellow that put the engine back on, you had to re-torque the engine bolts
to a certain specification.
Right. And he didn't do it. So the engine was the vibration.
That's not good.
No, that wasn't good at all.
So what's one of your most memorable experiences from your time in the service?
Well, the fellows that I worked with in the squadron itself, because that squadron, we were such a knit outfit.
A lot of camaraderie?
Yeah, and the freedom that he gave us to do our job. I mean, because the guys all did their job. Yeah. So that was one of the things. He could come around in his Jeep and you went to salute.
Did you stay in touch with any of those guys after you got out of the service?
I did for a little bit, but then they were scattered so far.
Yeah, hard to do back then.
Yeah.
What did you do once you got out of the service? You came back home?
Well, I came back home, and I promised I would work for my dad. He had a small business, and I stayed there. And then he went back to his regular job, what he used to do, company.
Did you join any military veterans organizations?
No, I never did. I never did. I went to a lot of doings, but never joined any.
Any regrets about being in the military?
Nope. No, I don't. Because I said being sent over to Puerto Rico, I'll tell you one excuse. When the Battle of the Bulge was on, they were taken from the Air Force, all PFCs. That's it's the lowest.
Right.
And then they started taking corporals. That was a two-striper. And then they started to take sergeants. And then orders came down to our squadron, and I was next to go. Because they were shipping them right over there, because they needed troops.
Right.
And the fellow next to me came in that night, drunk, raised holy cane, was the CO. And you know who shipped out the next morning?
He did.
Yep. And then that's when they canceled.
Wow.
That's how close I came. So that's one thing I always remember. And often, of course, you couldn't find out where he went or nothing, military.
Right.
I often went and thought about him.
Well, Al, I want to thank you for your service. I want to thank you for coming down today and sharing your story. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm General Barry McCaffrey. During the Vietnam War, more than 58,000 of our troops did not come home. For every name on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, there's a life story, a story of hopes, dreams, friends, and family. Join me in supporting a new campaign to build an education center on the National Mall that will tell their stories and honor all who served. Call to learn how you can help.
You're watching The Bat.
This program was brought to you by the same men and women that also brought you your freedoms. Thank you for watching Salute to Service.
We all share a common journey. We wanted to serve our country, stand for something bigger than ourselves, and protect the things we love. Although we were ready to face any mission, help those in need, and make a difference, for some of us, coming home was more of a challenge than we expected. In the service, we had each other's backs. But as veterans, it can sometimes feel like we're all alone, even when surrounded by our loved ones.
At the Veterans Crisis Line, we understand what you're going through, and we can help. It's your call.
In the year 2000, Brunswick's history found a home at 4613 Laurel Road, now known to our community as Heritage Farm. Its mission is to preserve our past and showcase it for generations to come. Our volunteers have worked for decades collecting and archiving Brunswick's transition from a farming community to a bustling city. But over the years, nature takes its toll on historical artifacts and the places that hold them dear. We need your help to keep the memories safe. Becoming a member of the Brunswick Area Historical Society will help generate the funds necessary to keep the farm and the memories alive. Individual memberships start at just $15. Corporate giving starts at $100. And of course, your volunteer service at Heritage Farm is priceless. Join the drive to save our history. For membership information, visit us on the web at www.brunswickhistory.com.